Our topic for today is moving beyond the skills gap. Best practices in inclusive employment. As you're much aware, there have been a lot of talk about the skills gap. Employers have been claiming that people with disabilities or younger people, they lack those skills, which is required in the world of work. That has been on and has been known. But for our session today, we are looking at the best practices. We have to go beyond the skills gap. What can we do to make our workplaces more disability inclusive? Some of you are very familiar, you know all the things. For this session, we are going to answer 3 questions to have a personal reflection. What should employers do in hiring, retaining, and also retaining at scale? Secondly, what workplace systems should change? You have the answers. And the third, to try to respond to those questions. How can AI and also inclusive recruitment look at the tools and the gig economy? What can be the pathways to a dignifying and fulfilling work? In our engagement, we are going to do this in 3 segments. The first segment on inclusive employment. Second segment, we are just talk about the available tools, resources that can aid inclusive employment. And lastly, discuss about the gig economy. We hope you are going to stay alive to go through, because these segments are well aligned logically. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite our friend, Charles Warrior, the program director for Enable. Just to introduce to us our 2 keynote speakers. After hearing from them, we shall have other discussions. To you, Charles.
I'm happy to see you all here this morning, fresh and early. Let me start by telling you a small story. There was once an old man who woke up one morning and he went to the shore, and there was fish that had been swept off the shore, and they were almost dying because of lack of oxygen. And so this old man was picking one fish at a time and throwing them back into the water. And everybody who passed by asked him, "This is such an effort in futility. How many fish do you think you're going to save?" You know? And with every person who passed by, he looked at them, he picked one fish, he threw it back again into the water. And he said, "For every fish that I throw back into the water, I have made a difference for them." Today, countries in the sub-Saharan Africa are losing between 5 to 7% of their GDP because persons with disability are excluded from employment. This roundtable on inclusive employment is trying to catch the fish and put them back into the water. And everybody is saying, how do you think you're going to do it? The gap is so huge. The gap is so huge. They have been so left behind by so many steps. that your efforts are almost in futility. But we're here like the old man, and we're saying for every person, for everyone person with disability that we help to secure a decent and fulfilling work, we will make a difference for them in their lives. And I thank you all for being here today. On behalf of Enable and on behalf of this partnership that we started, we want to move forward to make a difference, to remove the barriers. There are so many barriers. Last year we spoke about skilling, and the employers were saying persons with disability lack the skills they need to get the jobs. This year we're changing the narrative. We're saying, but how about what can we do about the skills? So instead of blaming the skills, what can we do about the skills? Are there employers who are already doing something different about the skills, either through upskilling, through deliberate skilling, through creating opportunities, for example, that make a difference through AI, that open the spaces for persons with disability to get the employment? We want to be able to move the needle. And we have private sector in the room. We have different kinds of actors in the room. I would like to take this moment, my brief here is pretty simple, to invite some of our key partners in this journey, starting with Light for the World. The global CEO for Light for the World, Marion, is here. I would like to invite her to give us an opening speech and set the tone for this particular roundtable. Please welcome Marion.
Thank you very much. My name is Marion Lisa, and for the ones who cannot see me, I'm a relatively tall, blonde, white woman, and I'm wearing black pants and a blurry striped blouse, and I'm wearing glasses. So, yes, hello. And I'm delighted to be here, and I'm also very grateful for the Inclusive Africa conference to create this space for an exchange, to get together and get deeper into a very important subject, which is moving beyond skills. So not only that the space has been created, all of you took their time to be here. So thank you also to the employers, to the young people with disabilities, to our friends and partners from the development sector for your interest. The title, Moving Beyond Skills, or Moving Beyond the Skills Gap actually, doesn't mean that we don't need skills. We do need skills, we need competence, because skills are a foundation. They give us also a confidence to move on in our professional life, and they are helping us to achieve the goals we set in our professional lives. But we need more than skills, because what we can see is that we are having a system which is not supporting people with disabilities, and especially young people with disabilities, on their pathway to a fulfilled professional life. And if you are having a broken system at one point, it's hard to fix it, but it's possible to fix it, and that's why we are here. Because what does it mean if you're a young person with disability and you're blocked by an inaccessible recruitment process? What does it mean when the interview itself is not catering for the fact that you might live with a disability? How can you actually ensure that we are not having tokenism or just a position which is there to show that we are the good ones as employees, as employers? How can we ensure that we are authentic in our wish and the need to grant human rights to everyone, and like that, of course, reach out to the whole disability community to ensure that they are fully integrated in our life, and here we are talking about our professional life. So today, the skills gap actually is a system gap. And when I look at the organization I'm standing for, which is Light for the World International, I can tell you that we work our programs, our projects, our daily deliveries on very important beliefs. So the most important point here is that any kind of work is not a charity. Any kind of work has to be a dignified and fulfilling work, and that is important for young people with disabilities as for any other person in the world. And that also means that an internship or a symbolic position is simply not enough. So everything we are doing in our professional life should actually lead to income, it should lead to growth, it should lead to belonging, to recognition, and the possibility, especially for young people with disabilities, to lead and to contribute. So that is why for Light for the World, our technical partnership with the MasterCard Foundation is of ultimate importance, because through the We Can Work program, which is supported by the MasterCard Foundation, we try to achieve 1 million young people with disabilities in decent employment by 2030. So the question you will hear about today actually is practice. How are we able to practically achieve this? What must be done by employers, by HR leaders, by the gig community we heard about already, by development partners, by organizations of persons with disabilities, and by the young people with disabilities themselves to change the present obstacles and to right the wrong? What can we do different to make inclusion part of the system and not something beside it? So when I look at us as employers, because also me as CEO for Light for the World International, I'm an employer, and I'm facing the same obstacles all of you are facing as employers. How can recruitment be truly accessible? How can we budget for reasonable accommodation? How can we have teams in our people and culture or human resource departments which are actually confident when dealing with persons with disabilities? And also important, because internships are often the first point, the first contact with an employer, how can we ensure that there is a beneficial pathway from an internship into a permanent employment, if that is what the person with disability would like? So, career paths are for everyone. The second point I would like to mention is for a wider audience here, because we need usable tools. We don't need just tools which are somewhere and somebody knows of somebody who has them. We need tools which are accessible and they are usable for everyone. We also need accountable partnerships. So we should walk the talk together, and we should avoid paying lip services and having gloss brochures, but we should be authentic and stand to our causes, and inclusion is part of it. And all that needs to be thought through from design to delivery. because otherwise we again are facing a broken system. Here we had our friend already looking into artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence, as much as the so-called gig economy, are both reshaping work across Africa, and probably not only across Africa, but we are here today looking at this continent. Both AI and gig economy can actually create huge opportunities. But, and now the list of buts is coming, unfortunately, it needs to be looked into fairness. The opportunities need to be fair. They need to be accessible. And they have to offer decent work, not just work. Decent work, dignifying work, and work which is offering protection. Because otherwise, we all are falling into the trap that we are actually reproducing exclusivity by scale. And that is something we do have to avoid by any means. So, my invitation to all of you, to all of us today, is actually to be honest. Take the mirror, reflect, be honest. And let's share what is working and also what is not working. Because sometimes we are learning more from what is not working and reflecting on it than from just sharing what is working. Let's move beyond the good intentions, because I believe that everybody here in the hall has good intentions, has a good heart, and strives for a better world without discrimination on disability and without poverty. So I believe everyone has the best intentions, but we have to move beyond it and look into practical solutions. Because practical solutions are what is bringing really change about it, and we have to look into what happens after this conference. Because we don't want communiques, we don't want papers, we don't want a nice statement after this meeting today on LinkedIn or wherever, and then it stops. No, we shall not stop. We are in it together, and we have to, as the most important part of today, listen. We have to listen well to people with lived experiences of disabilities, of young people with disabilities, and we have to see what we jointly can achieve to change it and to right the wrong. Again, thank you so much for having me here, for giving the space, and I would like to give back to, I guess, Ambrose, right?
Yes.
Oh, to Charles.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Marion. Please, let's give a round of applause to Marion. Marion's powerful speech has reminded me of a story, not a story actually, a sharing by a friend of mine who is a parent to a child with autism. And they had gone for sports day at the school. And when they were at the start, the gun was shot to start the run. And then they were running, and then the boy saw his friends in the crowd. And he stopped by to say hi to his friends. He forgot he was running. Then he would run again and see another friend, and he would stop by to say, so he completed the race, but after his friends had completed the race. And so I asked her, so what's the point? And she said, listen, in that race, and the people who organized the race didn't think that my son, who is autistic, has certain characteristics, and he's social, so when he sees his friends, he forgets that he was running, And then the people, the organizers, ought to have thought about it and all. So it brought in an aspect of inclusivity, you know, and what Marion said about, are we scaling by exclusion? Are we moving too fast to get there faster and forget about everybody else who is not running as fast as we're running to move with us? And that's a powerful speech. That's my takeaway. Are we scaling through exclusion? You know, I'd like to invite the representative from UNDP to come and share a few words.
Good morning. I am truly delighted to be here. It's a really wonderful morning, even the weather is perfect. That means that we are all energized to be here. First, I want to thank, my name is Ashura Michael. I am an associate at UNDP. I'm representing my boss, Lara, who happened to not be here today, but I want to deliver part of his speech. Today, our discussion this morning, I want to thank Light for the World and MasterCard because of the strong partnership that we have, which is very important. Why? Because this partnership with NDP, we work beyond just, we want to support people and economically. So we have $7.7 billion has been set aside for persons with disability. So that means that our country director who has given us a clear way forward, which gives economically, gives big impact to people for the economy and also for people with disability and also in health. So today, our theme, like my friend from Light for the World has said, we want to strengthen this partnership, which is very important. We also want to remove these barriers that people with disabilities have. And UNDP, working with UNDP, we want to convene a disability partnership, and which is to include the private sector and over this partnership is very important because it gives us an opportunity to remove these barriers, and also it is very important, but we need to think beyond how we can solve our economy and have an impact. So for persons with disability especially, so that they can grow in their countries and in the economies. So we want to include persons with disability in employment, and we want to see how we can move and reduce these gaps that we're having. Because we want to move beyond this person with disability and create opportunities for them, and also to increase GDPs in their countries. Because the private sector and NGO and organizations with persons for disability, we want together, we move forward disability policy and access and practice. And as for MasterCard and Safaricom and many other partners, we want to partner and work together. But the question is, we have a specific data that we want to see, and this will be the center for this data. But we also want to improve the economy together as people in these organizations, and also we want to see how Light for the World and other partners can create more access, which is very important, which it can make employment opportunities possible for people with disability. Last year, UNDP and UN and other partners came up with a new strategy, which includes people with disability, which is a very, one big achievement that we had to provide services, especially which we can use technology to leverage on employment of persons with disability. So whereby someone can work from home maybe for an hour and have a fulfilling life working from home. So these partnerships are possible, and moving forward, we can create opportunities, and I call upon all of you to join us and partner with us. We thank Safaricom and other strong partnerships that we had, Light for the World, which have made this possible for these partnerships, and in upscaling skills for persons with disability. And UN is very ready to partner with all of you in supporting digital inclusion for all of you. So we have many opportunities that we are creating, and going forward, we hope that we can hear from you and learn from you and see how we can move forward together and close these gaps together.
Thank you, Ashura. Would like to also give a special appreciation to the UNDP for being at the forefront on disability inclusion. Last year, working with the other partners, the UNDP was able to put the joint strategy for disability inclusion in Kenya, which has now culminated into the KDIP, the Kenya Disability Inclusion Partnership, again, driving public-private sector conversations and partnerships to be able to move the needle. The center of that is the recognition that private sector holds a critical key in disability inclusion. If the private sector is not at the forefront, all else will not be at the forefront. And so that's critical, and we appreciate UNDP and ILO for seizing that opportunity to drive that private sector conversation for disability inclusion. With those few remarks, I'd like to give it back to our chair of the session, Ambrose.
All right. Thank you a million times. Thank you, Light for the World. Thank you, UNDP. I really also captured some highlights from Light for the World. There's something triggered me, walking the talk. Just like Light for the World, where I also work. This is a good example where I'm working. I work as a senior expert, disability inclusion within Light for the World International. Please join me to clap for our CEO, Light for the World. Light for the World has a number of senior staff, and especially those with disabilities. In Uganda alone, even Kenya and other countries, we have, like in Kenya, the country director is a person who is deaf. Richard is here, Light for the World Kenya country office. Richard Mativu. Can you stand for recognition, Richard? Light for the World is not an organization of persons with disabilities. It's a mainstream organization. And also we have a number of senior managers with different positions. And when we talk of walking the talk, that's what it means. And likewise, also UNDP, we have our colleague with the hearing impairment, they're also working with UNDP. That's walking the talk. Without further ado, allow me to invite back Charles. Charles did a short survey on artificial intelligence in the area of world of work. Can you give some highlights? What were the key findings from that survey? Because the world is a bit worried. There are some negative or positive connotations associated with the artificial intelligence. Especially we are looking at interns. How do they start? You go and do some internship. The first assignment they give you to record minutes, then write reports. You go and learn. But as we speak now, artificial intelligence has taken over, even taking minutes, and even reports being done by AI. So what will the interns do? That's the biggest worry. Therefore, Charles, please. can you just come and share with us some snapshots from the findings of the survey? Then later we shall be hearing from the distinguished panelists.
Thank you very much. I'll stand on the side so that I don't block the screen. Speaking at a recent interview by the BBC, the former UK Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, said that flat is a new up. And what he meant is that employers are now freezing new employments. And what they're doing is they are skilling their senior staff with the AI tools so that the AI tools can get them to do the work. You know, and so there's less growth in terms of employees, but more skilling. We did a short survey. Let me find the thing for, yeah. I think it's this one right here, yeah. And this was among 20 companies. Let me see if it's going to work. Does it work? Oh, yeah, well, okay, go back a bit. Yeah. So we did a short survey among 20 companies in Africa. The representation, we had seven companies in East Africa, 3 from West Africa, 2 from North, 4 from Southern Africa, and there were some whose they have operations in Africa, but the headquarters are not in Africa. Banking and financial services at 25%, international trade and energy at 5%, retail and FMCG at 10%, telecom at 10%, professional services at 5%, and technology at 5%. That was the representation across the sectors. In terms of employee range, 5% was small companies, almost SMEs, at 50 to 200 staff. But we also have companies that have 1,000 to 5,000 staff, and we have the largest number of companies at more than 10,000 staff across the region. Don't worry, this presentation will be shared with you. In terms of how are they using, so for example, telecoms are high on operations and customer optimization. We're seeing professional services like audit firms and all are high on augmenting analysis and decision making. We're seeing banking and financial services are high again also on augmenting and decision making support. And so is manufacturing. So a lot more of the companies are strong in the middle, where AI is being used for augmenting analysis and decision making. Next one. Is it going to work? Yeah. Our companies, there's the question we had, there's this conversation whether companies are adopting skills-based approach as opposed to job-based approach. So are people being employed because they have the AI skills to drive optimization or not? And what we're seeing is only 15% of the companies are saying that they are adopting a skills-based model, looking for people who already have the AI skills. But we're seeing a growth in terms of transitions, 20%. There's limited evidence that companies are using skills-based approach. As we will see in the next slide, companies are opting to upskill the workforce that they already have. Go back a second. Okay. Yeah, I think this. Yeah. So how what are companies doing as far as responding to AI is concerned at the workplace? We're seeing a lot more in terms of companies mainly strengthening the workforce capability rather than reshaping job structures outright. So companies aren't moving to phase out certain jobs, but to upskill and strengthen the skills of the workforce that they have. We're seeing a lot more emphasis around AI literacy, technical upskilling, using a lot more data-related capacity building, And of course, indicating practical readiness agenda around helping the staff to effectively work with new tools. So some of the companies we spoke with put, for example, AI tools as a compulsory skill requirement for all staff. So all staff are required to learn AI tools like Copilot, like Gemini, and be able to augment their work with that. We're seeing a good number of companies now going into academies as pathways for strengthening staff skills, but we're also seeing some of those companies doing rotational. So you have staff work in a department, and after a year or so, you move to another department to learn the skills in that department, and then within a period of time, you are required to have moved at least 4 departments and learned the skills in those 4 departments. So companies are less restructuring, but are more upskilling and strengthening what they have internally. And I think that's pretty much the end of it. That's the last one. Yeah, that's pretty much the end of what we had. Because of time, I only had 5 minutes to do a precursor, and that's my precursor right there to set the tone for the conversations in this roundtable.
We have seen many companies very much also wanting people who are skilled staff on how best they can use artificial intelligence. We shouldn't get worried that we are going to lose jobs, but also should adapt and see how we go by the trend. If we just sit on the sit back, we are likely to lose. So this is very good, and thank you for highlighting this, Charles. Without further ado, in the interest of time, allow me to invite my co-moderator to moderate and take us through the first session. Please.
Thank you very much. I can see I'm getting warning on, in terms of time. A very good morning and welcome to this session, the first round table discussion this morning. This discussion is about practical steps towards disability inclusive employment. So to help me unpack this conversation, I'm going to invite my panelists to just raise their hand so that you can see where they're seated and who they are for purposes of responding to the questions. So at this point, I want to introduce Peter Njioka. He's the head of Human Resource Group Shared Services at Safaricom.
As I said, my name is Peter Njioka from Safaricom. You can't mention diversity, equity, and inclusion at Safaricom without mentioning Tabi. So thank you very much, Tabi, who has been very, very instrumental. So at Safaricom, we have 4% of our employees persons with disability. And that has not been by accident, it has been deliberate to ensure that we are as inclusive as possible. So if you have a university where the lab is on 5th floor, actually what we are telling the PWD is that you cannot access the lab, and therefore we don't care about you. So I think there is a need for lots of investment. Then there is also, actually right now we have about 12 jobs that we have advertised. And I can tell you I haven't seen any PWD applying for the roles. Why? Because they lack the requisite skills. Then of course there is the recruitment process. Some of our processes sometimes also discourage persons with disability to apply for roles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Linda.
So thank you very much, Peter, a veteran in the field. Aviation is highly regulated. And we actually, at one point, had an interview of about 20 persons with albinism with the intention of having them join our flight. And out of all those, only one was taken in. And that's because of the challenge that we, persons with albinism, have in terms of their vision. And so the question then goes, should we push for policy to be a bit more relaxed? Because you see, as much as Kenya Airways, we might think, okay, we want to take you in, but what does the international standard for aviation say? And therefore, that becomes a limitation for us right there. And we are still trying to warm people up to the idea. I'm glad that the lady who is there is doing an excellent job. We also have a person with albinism who is doing check-in. So when people come, he's our face. They actually see that we are actually beginning to become accessible to persons with disability, as much as aviation is very, very regulated. So it's just becoming creative. And then, of course, the other one is reasonable accommodation. And reasonable accommodation is a common one for all. Remember, the world was never built with persons with disability in mind, and so our workspace was not. So we are adjusting as we become accommodative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda and Peter. So that has to do with mindset, just changing people's mindset to embrace disability inclusion. And how then do we leverage, like KQ has said, Linda, on technology to ensure that we continue to build an inclusive workplace. Thank you, Peter, for highlighting the progress you're making with employing persons with disability. 4% is no mean feat. I'm waiting to hear when you get to that 5% and beyond. So thank you so much in highlighting the skills gap. But today we want to go beyond, think beyond the skills gap. What can employers do to ensure that we accelerate disability inclusion at the workplace? The second question goes to Derek Omari. Beyond the well-known skills gap, now that Peter talked about skills gap, but we want to go beyond because we have had these discussions for a while now. So beyond the skills gap, what other internal factors are holding organizations from making the strides in disability inclusive employment?
Well, thank you very much. Again, I want to mention that I'm here on behalf of Mariano Baruita, who is the manager of inclusion and belonging at the World Bank Group. I also want to recognize that we have Charlotte, who is the Global Disability Advisor here at the back of the room. And so I'm speaking on behalf of the entire team. So the World Bank seeks to, we're working very hard to be the best place to work in development for persons with disabilities. And I really appreciate your question because what we are noticing is that we are seeing highly skilled persons with disabilities in our workplace. And in fact, even when we come out with talent outreach, we are participating in this inclusive Africa conference because we know that there are many skilled persons with disabilities in Africa and across the world. And so we wanted to be on the field, we wanted to be on the ground, and to let people know that we are open and we would love you to work with us. But as you mentioned, so we don't think skills is necessarily a big problem. We also think that there is a lot of work we need to do internally. One of the things that we must acknowledge is that the decision to hire persons with disabilities largely rests on managers. No matter what you do, in the end, the manager is the one deciding whether they have headcount, whether they are willing to work with the candidate. And we know for a fact in a world or an organization where we have people coming from different backgrounds, different countries, different nationalities, the experience and expertise around and capability around disability inclusion is not the same for everybody. And so you have a lot of managers who, for them, this will be their first time interacting with a person with disability. So even though they may have taken some courses, they may have some awareness, the decision to take the first step is always very difficult. And that is the fact. And I appreciate the CEO's remarks on being honest. And so for us, one of the things that we continually try to do is to build their capabilities practically how do we ensure that managers become more comfortable, more skilled, not only managers, but also the teams become confident that they can work with a person with disability without having any form of barrier, like stereotypes or any form of biases. And so some of the things that we try to do is to ensure that we are providing them that practical opportunity through internships. Not using internships as a symbol, but using internships as an entry level for them to actually engage with the skill talents that we see, actually help give them that first-hand opportunity to be surprised. Oh, wow. In fact, one of the times we had an intern who did so well, the team was so surprised, they ended up extending his internship for many more months than we had anticipated. And that is the kind of results that we are seeking. The second thing I want to point out is that what we also notice is that a lot of times when managers are faced with the decision of having to screen candidates and determine whether this person requires accommodation, we try to eliminate biases as much as possible in our recruitment process. And because of that, we have a dedicated accommodation center of excellence that provides confidential accommodation to candidates in our recruitment process and in our workplace so that managers do not have to be the ones deciding on whether someone requires accommodation to participate in an interview. Hence, sort of like likely increasing the bias. What we are doing is ensuring that as a manager, you are just informed that this person is participating in the interview and this is the accommodation that is being provided. And at the World Bank Group, our accommodation approval rates are far above industry. And so that's the confidential thing that we are doing to sort of like reduce, that bias that could exist and also build managerial confidence. And the last thing I want to mention is on data. What we've noticed is that disability inclusion is only conceptual without proper measurement of data. A lot of times there is a lot of activity, a lot of movement, but we don't really know. Are candidates satisfied with the accommodation they are receiving? What is the time to fill accommodation being asked? Right? We want to ask ourselves, how many of our events are accessible? If we are organizing 100 events in a year, how many of them actually have closed captioning, sign language interpretation? We want to actually hold ourselves accountable, hold leaders accountable, identify gaps, track the progress, so that we are not just talking, but we are actually making sure that we are making progress. And so these are some of the things that we are doing to overcome some of the challenges in our organization.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think one of the biggest takeaway is the data and tracking. How do you monitor? How do you know you're making progress? I think that is one area that cuts across many, many organizations. I won't repeat what else has been said in terms of, just changing the mindset of the leaders, because leadership buy-in is very critical. So let's move on to the next one, and it's on something you touched on, but I want to ask this question to Peter. Even though many organizations offer short-term opportunities, so in terms of internships, in terms of attachments to persons with disability, we often struggle with making those and transitioning those to permanent roles. Yeah? Why is that? Why are we struggling? And what can we do differently as organizations to ensure that we transition the short term to permanent where possible? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tabi. Actually, I would say this is a challenge for Safaricom because we look at transitioning 100% of interns into roles in Safaricom. What we struggle with is mismatch in terms of skills. Because sometimes you might bring in an intern, but then progressively you realize they don't match the skills that are required in the organization. But that's very, very rare. In fact, what we have done, we have gone ahead to partner with the institutions to train fresh PWDs who are graduate PWDs, so that by the time they come to the organization, they are already ready to transition to the roles. And we have had 2 cohorts of trainees, and I can confirm that when they join Safaricom at the entry level, they are all progressing 100%. So what happens is that it starts from the beginning. If you are deliberate to ensure that you attract the light interns, you provide opportunities and ensure that you support the interns even before they become interns, then the transition will be guaranteed. But what we find is that many organizations in Kenya are looking at employing PWDs from a Massey mindset or CSR mindset. So you just want to say we have X number of PWDs in the organization, instead of saying we have identified talent, PWD talent, who we want to retain. So that's a very different mindset. So accommodate, provide support before, so that when they come into the organization, then they are ready to transition. And we have PWDs in almost all our departments currently. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Over to you, Linda. Same question.
Being learners in the game, we have a lot of use cases in terms of challenges. So one of the challenges we are finding is what he alluded to, headcount. You know, the headcount is based on what is available in terms of budget. At the moment, we do have a bit of a strain on our budgets and actually are not quite able to hire. And so that has been a challenge in making the interns transition into work. However, as I had illustrated, we do have a few people that have actually gotten into work. So we are expanding our capability. And so perhaps also to just overcome the headcount is just to bring this to management, that having people on board is, we can expand our budgets, because our budgets then will eventually bring us the money that they're saying they do not have. So, because interns we've identified are very innovative, and they also help us as a business to be innovative and therefore attract more customers. And then that makes up for the budget that we could get the pushback or are currently getting pushback because of the headcount. So that is how we are handling the headcount. So when you bring the question on the table, there's pushback, then you say, okay, we might initially have the headcount challenge, but look down the line. We're looking at innovation, and so we're looking at more income coming our way, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Linda and Peter. Now, changing gears, we move to AI. We know now that AI is rapidly advancing and reshaping the way we do business. How does this growth mean to persons with disabilities and to future of inclusive recruitment, and particularly entry-level jobs? Are we seeing new pathways to employment in terms of persons with disability? Are we fearing that we might actually be scaling exclusion? Thank you.
No, this is a really good question, and it's something that we have been very, very intentional about. In fact, people are not only searching for jobs with AI, now they ask AI to even apply for the jobs for them. And I think that it's a good thing. What we need to do as organizations, and something that we have started doing intentionally, is to ensure that there is clear information about the organization. There is very clear information about how the organization supports candidates with disabilities and how the organization is structured and provides the necessary adequate needs that can ensure that staff, when employed, can thrive. And this is important because research tells us that candidates with disabilities are likely to apply to an organization 2 times to 3 times likely to apply to an organization that clearly articulates its commitment to disability inclusion and also highlights how they support the candidates. And because this is so important, why? Because today AI scrapes information from platforms, recruitment, careers platforms, recruitment platforms, and provides that information to the candidates. And so if this is not clearly articulated, what happens is that the candidates are not getting clear information, the candidates are not building enough trust you are going to end up receiving very little number of applications from qualified candidates who are very good. You know, so then you end up having the challenge of having candidates who look like they are not skilled. Because the skilled candidates are looking for something. They are looking for an organization where they feel valued. They are looking for an organization where they feel like they can be well supported to deliver. And so for us, one of the things that we are doing is to articulate clearly our commitment through our social media pages, through our careers web pages. In fact, we have a careers chatbot that allows candidates to go in and ask any question related to disability inclusion, accommodation, the kind of support we have for persons with disabilities at the World Bank Group, and it provides them instant responses, very specific responses. And so these are some of the things that we have to be mindful of with the introduction of AI. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Derek. So now we move on to Anne Kogi. How is the UN and other big development organizations leading the way in inclusive recruitment? And what can private sector actually borrow with pride? Because private sector doesn't need to reinvent.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the panel today. So my name is Anne Kogi. I'm the UNV country coordinator for Kenya, where we are supporting over 300 UN volunteers that are working around the country. And one of the parameters we have is our recruitment modality, because it's very important when we speak about inclusion. Because one of the questions we ask ourselves is, are our adverts, our vacancies, are they accessible? Are the platforms where our assignments, can people with disability access these platforms? And even like, for example, during the interviews, do we provide them with the necessary requirements that they need? So in our recruitment, we have on-site assignments. These are assignments where the candidates are at the duty stations. And the UN volunteer has gone an extra mile to ensure that we provide flexible opportunities, for example, remote assignments, including also short-term assignments, and also I have said short-term and part-time assignments. We also have the online volunteer assignments. This means that candidates sitting anywhere in the globe can actually access these assignments as long as they have internet connectivity. So this then provides also another platform for even people with disability that may be having challenges of transportation or any kind of mobility to have access. We also have assignments that are specifically targeted for people with disability. And this is where partnership is very crucial for us, because then we engage, for example, like with UDPK or KISE, to reach out to them, to share with their networks to be able to identify these specific candidates that fit these profiles. In terms of maybe some of the takeaways that our partners can take with them is, one is to ensure that the recruitment starts all the way before the interview process, so that all those processes, the advert, the assignment, is accessible. The second thing also that would be important is to really ensure that the assistive technology and reasonable accommodation is taken into consideration at the planning process, so that you don't come to the end of the recruitment only to find that this particular candidate prefers this assistive device and it will cost the organization this much. And then lastly is, how do we then ourselves, even at the workplace, ensure that we are able to accommodate our colleagues with, living with disability? How do we treat them? How do we receive them? And as an organization, are we all aware of what we need to do to be able to live together and work harmoniously? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anne, we're getting towards the end of the first session. And this question is addressed to Doreen and Princess. So from your perspective as a person with disability, so you're telling us from you're giving an experience from, lens of a young person with disability. What should HR leaders better understand about hiring and making work adjustments, communication, and supporting your career developments?
Thank you so much. I think it's time HR should understand that they have to think about what need or what support we will need to survive in the job, in their sector, like their workplaces, than thinking about what we can bring on board, because that brings an assumption and unconscious biases which doesn't allow them to be motivated to do more of investment in us. So for me, from my perspective, I think they should move beyond thinking about what we can offer and rather think about what support we will need to be able to function effectively to contribute to productivity at the workplace.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Over to you, Doreen.
I cannot really talk so much about inclusion without talking about education. Employers out there, they need to know that we persons with disabilities, especially here in Africa, from my view, is that most of the qualifications that we do get, yes, we do have good paperwork. At the end of it, all the certificates are good, but you should remember that we come from very far because we have experienced different situations, challenges, which has helped us to build our patience, that is for one, and also we are able to adapt to any situation. So when you give us this opportunity to work, we always focus on that, on what brings food to the table, on the employment that we do have. So when they are advertising for different job opportunities, they should look to see that these advertisements are accessible, because many people who are out there who have disabilities, who have the qualifications, but they cannot, let's say, access your advertising platforms that you've used. Take, for example, if you're having a visual impairment, you've inserted a picture, but then it has the details of the qualifications that I need or how to access these. How will I be able to read this information so at the end of it all I will miss it? And then tomorrow you start to hear that, no, they don't have the skills, the persons with disabilities have this missing gap, but let it be fully inclusive. In times when they say that you are going to be recruited at a given opportunity, we should not always look at, oh, this person is deaf, they will require an interpreter, it's going to be more like a burden. But the reasonable accommodation that you do provide, it's not even inclusive in like one size fits all. We all have different needs. I may need a sign language interpreter, but then let's say for someone who might need a captioner, or even they can't speak on their own. So when you hire them, you might have to have that app, that voice to text. So it helps you to communicate relatively at the end of the day, or even they will be able to contribute positively. So everyone have special, unique needs. Like Isaac here, he's deaf blind. So our reasonable accommodation varies from one person to the other. So when we are designing all the systems at the workplace, try to include all persons with disabilities as you are designing at the inception, because we have unique needs at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Doreen.
Oh,
thank you
please,
so much.
Finished.
Kindly bear with us. I will now hand over the mic to Ambrose to run the next session. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all the panelists. Can we give them a round of applause?
A number of tools, many of you have them, but we want to even feel them practically so that you can share with us how can those tools be of value to us. What could we might take home, for example, from here? I wouldn't wish to go deeper because we have our presenters here who are very familiar with such kind of tools. Here we have Yogin Amenzi from ILO and working as a disability inclusion specialist. Where does he live? He lives from the land of Alps. That's Switzerland. This question goes to you. Just share with us how employers can practically use tools and resources available to enhance access to recruitment, reasonable accommodation, workplace readiness, retention, and career progression when working with employees with disabilities.
Just maybe before responding to the question, just to explain my day job. So I work at the International Labour Organization, the ILO. It's the United Nations specialized agency for the world of work. So we are part of the wider UN family together with UNDP, for example. Now, I coordinate what we call the Global Business and Disability Network. This GBDN has been around since 2010, so more than 15 years. It currently comprises 45 multinational enterprises, not yet any multinational enterprises from Africa, so you're more than welcome to approach me after this session. But also we have more than 45 what we call national business and disability networks in this global network, including here in Kenya, but also in other 9 African countries. And some what we call non-business members like Light for the World and Sightsavers and others. So we try to make it easier for companies to include people with disabilities throughout their operations, policies, and so on, with a focus on decent work, which that's the overall mandate of the ILO. And our most successful tool is a self-assessment tool for companies. We have the version 3.0 that we launched about 3 years ago. It has 47 questions, but before that I must say it's universally applicable. So wherever you work, independent of the region, of the country, you can use that tool. It's free of charge. It's available, I think, in 7 languages: English, French, Spanish, Arabic, German, Japanese. We're working on future translations. It's on our website, businessanddisability.org. So it's universal. It's supposed to be an internal management tool for companies. It's not for the company to put on their website, we achieved 20, 30, 100%. That's not the intention. It's a holistic tool. It looks at what Ambrose mentioned, of course, recruitment process, reasonable accommodation, but also facility management, procurement, communication. So it's takes a 360-degree approach to the company and its business functions. It has 47 questions in 4 domains, ranging from the basics to workplace culture, customer, and allyship and reporting. These 47 questions you can answer with yes, no, don't know. Oftentimes you might just not know. But the process to answer these questions is important because you would have to engage, this is applied at country level, all the business leaders there, right? So the business leaders who have a function, their responsibility for procurement, for HR, for reporting, for example. You get a rating that helps you internally to see where you stand. And we also provide then like a risk assessment. If you don't address this as a company, you also are likely to face a legal risk in your country because usually there's non-discrimination legislation in place. But it's really for companies that are already convinced. In our network, we worked with companies that don't ask the question why. Why is it important? We don't waste our time. We work with companies who ask how. How do we make it effective? How do we make it work? And showcase these leadership by business. Now, just to acknowledge that there are 2 questions that companies need to answer with yes to move from like the foundational rating, so to say, to practitioner leadership. And that means you have to have in country a senior leader responsible for disability inclusion. And you have to consult with persons with disabilities directly, either through an employee resource group within your company or through an external OPD. Now, my time is up. I expected that. But let me just also quickly acknowledge that while I'm here right now, having flown from Switzerland, there are 4,000 delegates right now in Switzerland at our headquarters from our 187 member states, of course, including Kenya and all the other African countries represented here, from the ministries of labor, from the employers' federations, from the trade unions to discuss the most pressing issues in the world of work in our annual International Labor Conference. And one of the big discussions right now is the adoption of a recommendation and a legally binding convention on the gig, or we call it the platform economy. So it's really critical that we keep an eye on what is being discussed in Geneva right now as we speak, to see whether it is an inclusive process, not the process itself, but what the outcome, how will it impact people with disabilities? And I would really encourage you to read our ILO Director General's report for the International Labour Conference this year, which he dedicated, and he's from Togo, so interesting also from a global South African perspective. So he dedicated the report to the International Labour Conference this week and next week on AI. So the title is Harnessing AI for Decent Work. I think it's the best summary, so it's personal opinion, so to say, but it's, I think, the best summary I have read on AI and labor and also social protection from very interesting angles. For example, I mean, here, we're in Kenya, the potential of exploitation of data workers, right? We need to think, we talk about systems engineers and all of that, but that's at the high-end skills that I guess is important to talk about, but what is also the exploitative risk of AI and that ugly underbelly of powering the AI economy. So that's an interesting report I would encourage you to read, and at the same time, from our Global Business and Disability Network at the end of last year, we published a policy paper on the opportunities and risks of AI in employment for persons with disabilities. It's a 4-pager or so. I encourage you to read that, but my time has been up for 3 minutes or so, so I pass on to the next speaker. Thank you, Ambrose, for your patience.
All right, thank you again. Hearing from you and ILO. Members, you can scan the QR code here. What he has been talking about, more details can be accessed through the QR code. And even at another moment, you can have a side chat. Lunchtime or any time break, you can engage you again. Next, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to pass over the mic to my co-moderator. Yes, we are really conscious about the gender, democratic, and I can't grab the mic for long. The mic goes to Tabi. Thank you for your attention.
So do we have Isaac Muhumuza? Yeah? Oh, great. Great to see you. And if we have time, we will have Kennedy Okongo, Director Programs, Riziki Source. Is he here? Okay. Okay, so after examining tools, we've gone through tools and we've understood the role they play in building inclusive workplaces. And we know gig economy is actually redefining and reshaping the young people, including persons with disabilities. So to help us dive deep into a few questions very, very quickly, I will ask a question to Brenda. Brenda, where is Brenda seated? Oh, you're here. Great. So gig economy has become a buzzword, you know, in the recent past. Can you shed some light on what this is and some opportunities it offers you as young people?
Thank you, Tabi, and everyone here. I work with a program called Job Tech Alliance. We work with digital platforms across Africa under the Masico umbrella. So just to quickly answer the question, I'm excited to talk about the gig economy because I've been hearing HR, hiring, very formal sector stuff. So the gig economy is basically when you look at a labor market where you have short-term, flexible, task-based or project-based work opportunities. And these are increasingly being enabled by digital platforms. So that's in a nutshell what the gig economy is. So it's not a bit, it's very different. And it's rooted in the informal sector. So there's a lot of infrastructure breakdown, and that's where the digital platforms come to enable access. You have another category called digitally delivered work. I've had several people mention that as well. This is basically all the work is mediated online. You get the work online, you do it online. So think of a freelancer, think of a creative, a social media influencer, all these sit within that category. The last category is digitizing micro enterprises. We can't speak about gigs and informal sector without speaking about the micro enterprise sector, especially in Africa. So think of e-commerce marketplaces, the biggest one being Jumia, and also think of any platform or any business that has to be powered by agents. So mobile money, even when you think of Safaricom as well, so all those agent model businesses, these are also gigs, and these are counted as part of the gig economy. So as you can see, there are many layers to the gig economy, and one key opportunity that I will close with is they break down barriers. So there is no HR, I think is what I'm trying to say. There is no HR, there are not all these different barriers and obstacles that you find in a formal sector employment. So it really increases inclusion. There are more opportunities to include people who are usually marginalized. So that's the growing opportunities that we find in the gig economy. Thank you, Tabi.
There are jobs where when you're scrolling through your social media, you've not thought that there's someone who is moderating that so that you don't get the bad things on social media. So there are new types of jobs, and the low barrier to entry would be an opportunity. And of course, for those who are doing online work, they get to work with people from different parts of the world, and so they are also exposed to different cultures. I think for me that would be the opportunities. If I would start with the challenges, we would not leave this room.
Okay. we can discuss over lunch. So thank you so much, Frida. So I'll move quickly to Isaac. How can persons with disabilities be intentionally included in gig work opportunities? And what does job creation at scale look like in this context?
My name is Isaac. I'm a youth leader under the We Can Work program. So I want to start by saying, I want to start with job creation at scale, how it looks like. It looks like we are reaching at least 1 million young people with disabilities in Africa. Because when we reach just 100 people, 1,000, this is a small amount, because in Africa, we have so many young people with disabilities who have the potential. So, how can we achieve this number? We can achieve this by at least working with both private and public sectors, because I believe that each sector has opportunities there which persons with disabilities can benefit from. Now, how intentionally can we include persons with disabilities? Firstly, I want to say that we need to recognize young people with disabilities.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We'll come back for just a bit. And this actually question goes to both of you, Brenda and Frida. Kindly respond within the shortest time possible. Sorry about that. So as we are moving into AI. We've been speaking about gig economy. We can't do that without even, going into AI. So as AI takes a bigger role in our day-to-day, and I believe it's part of our day-to-day, how is it opening new opportunities in gig work while also creating fresh risks? Are we also seeing fresh risks for workers?
Yeah,
Very briefly.
So let me answer that quite quickly. So what we like to do is to look at what is the opportunity with AI and what's the risk. So I'll start with the opportunity. The opportunity in AI for the gig economy is that it's then able to make sure that we can work faster and also produce high value output. So AI can be used as a tool to be able to do this, and it's enabling a lot of entrepreneurs in the gig economy to do this much better and compete at that level. The other is, of course, the new opportunities it's creating. They are usually called human in the loop. I'm not sure if people in the room have heard this, but there's something that's commonly known in the AI economy called humans in the loop, where humans are testing, training, supervising, are architects and implementers of AI systems. So it's creating some new opportunities that are needed at a speed because it's developing too fast and it needs humans to enable it as well. So there are new opportunities there. But what's the risk? The risk are two key things that have been big in the gig economy is entry level. Entry level work is so routine that it's going to easily be replaced by AI, unfortunately. And so we need to start being able to either move up young people in the value chain so that they can be able to be skilled contributors or owners in the AI economy. So that's the biggest risk for us in the gig economy with AI.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Just similarly, Frida?
Yeah, okay. So from my end, in terms of AI, it is just what it is, Brenda has said. It's said to be able to help you be more effective, maybe more creative and all that. But then from where I stand, I think the risks are more because people tend to say that don't worry about AI, it's not going to take your job. I want to say that gig workers have been managed by algorithm for over 10 years, so it's not something new that we are talking about right now. Secondly is the work that, the captions that you're seeing here and transcription, that is one of the work that went really early. It's not just happening now. Brenda has mentioned the human in the loop, and the human in the loop is the people we need to look at because they're the people that are being affected the most. They train data that then automizes their work. Secondly, there's a lot of extractiveness and exploitation for the human in the loop. So when it comes to risk and all, I think what we need to understand is understand the jobs, the quality of work that is being created. Let's not get excited to say that jobs are coming in the digital economy. We are able to demonstrate that that is not true. And so when we're thinking about AI, can we actually think about the ethical side of it?
Thank you, thank you. That's a very good point. One last question, 30 seconds, Isaac. From your perspective as a young person with disabilities, what challenges, and maybe you can name the main challenge, when trying to access online work?
I believe that you can always try to design these online platforms by making sure that they are accessible to assistive technology and AI for persons with disabilities. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being brief. What, from where you sit in your organization, what are some of the lessons that you've learned?
My name is Lemi Mwamutu. I work with Resiksos. I lead employer engagement and relations. I'm coming in to represent my director of programs. Kennedy Okongo was to be here today. Resiksos works in disability space to support young people with disability to access employment, but with employers, both the informal and informal sector. Some of the key lessons that we have learned so far after interacting with the job seekers with disability and also employers. Number one, I think some of these learnings and experiences have already been communicated by the earlier speakers. One is the internship trap. Many of these young persons with disability, they spend more time on internship. The employers in the country and beyond, they are offering internship, and then these young people actually get affected to build confidence on their careers and also not be able to grow their careers as compared to other peers who they graduate together in the universities and other tertiary institutions. Another thing.
Okay, one more. 10 seconds.
Yeah, another thing that they always give feedback on is who they are working with. Actually, I resonate with one of the speakers who was saying that the team that they are attached to, most of them are not disability inclusive. They don't know how to handle them. They don't know how to support them to use the assistive technology that they have to do work-specific activities in the departments they are placed. So it's up to employers to think beyond supporting employers, the workforce that persons with disability will be working with, to be able to also leverage on the talents they have and innovations. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Questions? Anyone with a burning question, suggestion? Want to give you 10 seconds each. And then say your name and who you're directing your reaction to.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ivy Kehara from Light for the World. I don't want a response necessarily. I'll look for some people after this, but I would like us to think about what government quotas do, like the 5% from the Persons with Disability Act in Kenya, and how that actually impacts and how employers take that. I don't know if anyone can answer that in 5 seconds, but I will look for some people to respond to me directly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Lidonde from USIU Africa University. My question is for the team at Safaricom. Is there a difference by considering students coming in for internships a little bit earlier? Because we are seeing with other corporates that they're looking at getting them into internships about into year 3s, and we are seeing that this is actually working. So again, just looking at how we can merge in terms of academia and the industry, and if earlier entry into internships is something that is worth looking into, because it's working for some partners.
Hello, guys. My name is Karen Muriuki. I represent the Differently Talented Society of Kenya and the Neurodivergent Society of Kenya. Mine is to do with community development, especially in matters to do with employment and involving caregivers. One of the concerns that I have is a lot of caregivers are asking, what next for my child? You know, these are the basic questions that parents are asking. How best can you, as this is to all of the panelists, how best can you involve parents? Because these are the people who are advocating for their children. How best can you involve the parents in the room to advocate for their children in getting inclusive employment? Thank you.
So thank you very much. Anyone willing to tackle that last comment?
As Global Business and Disability Network launched a report last year on what individual companies can do, taking into account, of course, the national legislation on care and support in the respective countries, but we showcased leadership by business on corporate care and support policies that relate to employees with disabilities who might require care and support, but also employees with dependents, so usually children with disabilities, and that need support and care. So it's not directly related to how the parents can support their children in getting access to work, but we try to do this also to make sure that those care providers, caregivers who are full-time employed in a company have equal opportunities, right? Take into account that the care work, of course, also is very gendered, mostly on the shoulders of women. But check it out. It's a quite interesting report that is in a topic that we as business community haven't quite addressed yet, so thank you.
One thing that I'd like to say is that this technical working group on inclusive employment is not an enable working group. It's a sector working group, and enable is only a secretariat. We are having conversations with various partners to be able to help us to convene the working group. We want to be very deliberate about it moving forward. We will distill the learnings from this roundtable, and then we will share a report and reach out to all the partners in this room to start to crystallize the conversations and some action points. And we only play the role of a secretariat. As you can see, the chair of the technical working group is Ambrose from Light for the World. The deputy chair is Tabi, former Safaricom, now consultant, and we will rope in all the other active guys. But our intention is to begin to have sessions and convenings soon after this conference, so that by next year, we should have moved the needle and changed the conversation. So when we come back for the ISC next year, the topic will be very different. We'll be counting milestones on what we have done, what partnerships we have built, what jobs we have created through these partnerships, and what more can we do better. Our intention is not to convene to discuss barriers. Our intention is to convene to discuss how we are tackling those barriers and how we are changing the game for persons with disability. I want to thank you so much and also welcome you for a cup of tea right on the foyer and continue with the conversations while we're there. Thank you very much and have a wonderful afternoon.